So this presentation is going to be basically an outline of what AP biology is and some of the differences between AP and IB. And so just as an overview, the concepts that AP are going to be focusing on are first and foremost evolution as a basis for everything else. They call it the process of evolution and how it drives the diversity and unity of life. The second unit of metabolism they consider to be biological systems utilizing free energy and molecular building blocks to grow, to reproduce, and to maintain dynamic homeostasis. So metabolism goes along with homeostasis. Third is that living systems store, retrieve, transmit, and respond to information essential to life processes. We'll call that genetics. And finally, fourth, biological systems interact, and these systems and their interactions possess complex properties. So that's ecology, which takes up quite a bit of the exam, roughly 50%, while the other 50% is spread among the first three big ideas. One of the biggest differences between AP and IB is that IB gives you lab practicals that you have to do and submit, whereas AP requires you to do about 25% of your learning time as a lab practical, but you don't have to submit anything. Instead, they can test you on the lab practicals or the lab investigations. So we'll also be talking a lot in each unit or each video podcast about what are the lab investigations. So let's talk a little bit about the test itself. On test day, there are two sections. Section 1 has a total of 69 questions. 63 are multiple choice and 6 grid-in questions. So the information on your screen is wrong. But 6 grid-in questions, which means some kind of mathematical basis. And we're going to need to spend a lot of time talking about what that math is. You have 90 minutes for that, and that counts as 50% of your score. In section 2, it's a free response area, so everything's written out. You have 2 questions, and one of which is going to be lab or data-based. So you are going to have to draw from some kind of investigation information. And then you have a total of 6 short free responses, which require about a paragraph length argument or response. And you have 80 minutes for that in addition to 10 minutes of reading time. So you get 10 minutes to read, and then you can pick up your pencils for the remaining 80 minutes. And again, that counts for a total of 50% of your score. So speaking of scoring, you already know how the IB biology scores are broken down between 1 to 7, with 7 being an incredibly rare number of candidates that get that. Conversely, AP is based out of only 5 points. So someone with a 5 is considered extremely well qualified, a 4 is well qualified, and a 3 is qualified. Depending on what school you go to, you could get college credits for either a 3, 4, or 5. And sometimes if you get a 5, you might get 2 classes worth of credits, whereas a 3 might only get you 1 or something of that nature. And what is the breakdown? Well, roughly 20% of people get 5s on the AP exam. Definitely a lot more than people that get 7s on the IB. Then between 2 to 4, each category is between 15 and 16% of candidates, with about a third of all candidates getting a 1. Okay, so again, about 20% get a 5, 15 to 16% for 4s, 3s, 2s, and about a third or 34%-ish of candidates getting a 1 on the AP exam. So let's talk about the test itself just a little bit more in terms of when you're taking the test, what to watch out for. Wrong answers do not count against you on an essay question. You start with 0 points, and anytime you point out a correct piece of information that they're looking for, it's going to help you. Very similar to the IB exam. And I couldn't even find anything talking about how if you contradict yourself, you lose a mark or a point. I'd assume that would be the case, but I haven't found anything concrete. So in my book, give as much information as you can. Unlike the IB exam, they're not going to tell you a point breakdown for each question. You need to know going into it how many points are going to be counted for each section. So a 10-point question is going to automatically just be broken down into 2 5-point sections. So make sure you're mentioning enough information to cover that. You're not going to have that little mark reminder there in the corner to tell you make sure you hit 3 pieces or 5 pieces or 10 pieces of information. And like most tests, it is timed, but the proctor is not going to let you know when you have a 15-minute or a 10-minute time limit remaining, so you'll be responsible for watching that. And finally, if you do plan on taking all of the podcasts that I'm doing to take the AP exam at the end of the year, just as some background knowledge, this is the book that I'm going to be using and referring to. It's a very scaled down version, and hopefully I'll have a chance to give you a lot more drawings and collect a lot more information for you. But if you do want to buy a book, I will be following this chapter by chapter. So it's the Barron's AP Biology textbook, and what I'll be going through in order is going to be first biochemistry, the cell respiration and photosynthesis, cell division, heredity, molecular basis of inheritance, so DNA. All of that you're very familiar with, and there's just going to be a couple nuanced differences as well as going into detail for the labs. Then we spend a lot more time in evolution. As I mentioned, evolution is a very heavy concept in AP, so we'll talk about classification, evolution, plants, human physio, the immune system, and those two things we've looked a lot at, animal reproduction, which we'll be getting to in IB anyway, ecology, animal behavior. This is something completely different than anything that we've looked at, so you'll definitely want to look at this podcast, and then looking at the different investigations. There's a total of 13 that we'll have a chance to go back and review, but I'll be interdispersing them throughout each of the podcasts so that they make sense. And then right before the AP exam, I'll give you a couple of tips. And again, all of it is directly from Barron's, plus the information that we've already gone over in IB, plus all the information in my giant head. So with that in mind, good luck. I hope you enjoy, and I hope it's helpful.